Welcome to the Weekly Roar, coming live from the Lion's Den, helping new managers become great leaders and awesome bosses. And now, here's your host, Greg Storch.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Lion's Den. This is the Weekly Roar. This week, I want to speak to you about the concept of experience as a leader or as in anything else we do. What I've come to learn in the past decade is that what matters most is what we do with the experience we have. I'll explain a little more in just a second, but first, my name is Greg Storch, owner of Lion Enterprise, host of the Weekly Roar, and founder of a worldwide bartered coaching program called The Helping Hand. I'm a certified professional leadership coach and a certified leadership speaker and trainer. Now, I know a lot of you joined me last week in the Lion's Den for the Weekly Roar. If you did, or if you caught the replay, then you got to hear my discussion about why people don't quit jobs, they quit poor leaders. I think we've all experienced that bad boss who eventually drove you away because it was too difficult to follow the leader anymore. Now, if you weren't able to join us last Wednesday for the Weekly Roar, or maybe you just want to watch that session over again, or share it out with someone who you think might find value in it. If so, you can access the free video resources that are on my website at lion-enterprise.com. When you get to the homepage, just click on the Lion's Pride Library menu and find video number 140 for last week. And while you're in the Lion's Pride Library, make sure you look around and stay a while. It's a free resource, and it's a great way for you to get more of the roar. Okay, it's time to get today's lesson learned in leadership started. And I'm calling this one A Leader's Best Teacher. In 52 BC, Julius Caesar made the statement to the effect that experience is the teacher of all things. That's the earliest recorded version of the proverb we hear today that experience is the best teacher. But today, I'm going to challenge that line of thinking because I happen to agree with my mentor, John C. Maxwell. John told me that experience isn't the best teacher. Evaluated experience is the best teacher. Now, admittedly, when I first heard John say that, I had to think into what he was talking about. And after reading his book, Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn, I now understand exactly what he was talking about. See, our society places heavy emphasis on experience, doesn't it? It's become the plight of all college graduates looking for a job. Many times, graduates get turned down for positions because they don't have the necessary experience, which forces them to ask the question, how can I get the experience I need if I don't get hired into the position? When it comes to leadership, yes, experience is great to have. It helps followers give trust to their leader when they know that they have experience. But why is it then that we can see leaders that have many years of experience, but not a lot of wisdom to show for it? Here's an example of what I'm talking about. Back in June of 2018, the commanding officer, let's say the CEO, of one of the Navy's fast attack submarines that had a crew of 15 officers and 129 enlisted sailors was relieved of command, fired, due to a loss of confidence in his ability to command. Now, he later pleaded guilty at a special court-martial to conduct unbecoming an officer and a gentleman. And it was because he engaged in an inappropriate relationship with the spouse of one of his enlisted subordinates. Now, here's the thing. That officer received his commission in the Navy in 1999. So, for almost 20 years, he rose through the ranks, received training, and gained the experience needed to ultimately be chosen to command that fast attack submarine. I can tell you from my own experience that the Navy makes it very clear and provided constant training as it relates to matters such as these. It would be safe to say that that officer had experienced similar situations in other sailors who he led over the course of the previous 2 decades. But yet, here he was, being sentenced at a special court martial that ended his career. So every time I hear someone say that experience is the best teacher, I chime in and say, actually, it isn't. Evaluated experience is the best teacher. Some people will learn and grow from their experiences while others won't. The thing is that we all have experiences, right? But it's what we do with those experiences that matters most. Just having them won't do us a lot of good. We have to do something with them. When it comes to experience, there's 3 types of people categorized by what they do with their experience. See, some just speed through life without even acknowledging the experiences they have along the way. Then there are others who recognize that they've had the experiences, but they don't really give them much thought. It is what it is, kind of thing. And finally, there are some people who not only acknowledge the experiences they've had throughout their life, but they also take time to think back on them and reflect to gain insight and wisdom from them. It's the act of reflection that gives us the ability to turn our experience into insight. You've heard the old saying, you live and you learn, right? Well, that's not automatic. Just because you live doesn't mean you learn. You have to be intentional in order to go back and actually get the lesson from the experience. I can only hope that we all learn from what we've lived. I've met a lot of leaders throughout my career, inside and outside of the Navy. There were some who seemed to have a lot of knowledge, but not a lot of understanding. And there's a big difference between having the know-how to do something and having the know why. Now that I understand the power of reflecting on our experiences, I can see that these types of leaders, and even people who weren't filling a leadership role, were missing the acts of reflection and evaluation. So today, what I want to do is I want to help you gain the most from your experience. Effective leaders and successful people all evaluate their experiences in order to take away the lesson. But there are a few things to know about experiences in order to do that. So here is what you need to know. The first thing you should understand is that our understanding always lags our experience. Nobody is immune from gaining experience. Just by virtue of being human, we're bound to make mistakes. I guarantee you, I've had way more experiences than I've been able to understand. So it doesn't really matter how smart you are. Our intelligence doesn't really matter here. When it comes to our understanding, it will never catch up to our experiences. But that doesn't mean we should give up and just keep moving forward. We can still make the most of what we can understand, but that requires awareness around the experiences we have. For me, one of the ways I do that is by taking the week between Christmas and New Year's and reflecting back on the past 12 months. Typically, the major experiences stand out like a sore thumb, and so it's easy for me to think on them and reflect what lessons I've learned from them. Now, of course, you don't have to wait until the end of the year to do that. You could do it weekly or monthly or do it on a quarterly basis. Do it whenever you want to do it. But like Nike says, just do it. By taking the time to look back on your successes and failures, goals you've achieved, and not only the new relationships you've made, but also the ones you've had to set aside, you can begin to close the gap between what you experience and what you understand. But remember, no matter what you do, that understanding of yours will always lag your experiences. Okay, the second thing that you should understand about experiences is that, in the words of Zig Ziglar, our attitude determines our altitude. In other words, our attitude about the curveballs we get thrown in life is in direct relationship to our personal growth. Listen, I've experienced plenty of setbacks in my life, yet I've been successful in all of my endeavors. Now, of course, my definition of success might be different from yours, but what I'm trying to say here is that I didn't allow those setbacks to stop me. Life is full of setbacks and unforeseen detours. You've had them, I've had them, and I guarantee everyone we know has had them. But what we do with them, that's what makes the difference. We can either fight and shrink from it, or we can embrace it. And when we choose to fight them, we never get to learn their purpose. So I encourage you to try to embrace those not so great experiences, those detours in life, as a special excursion to learn another valuable lesson. I have a friend of mine, Amy Burkett, and she's working on writing her second book that she's going to call The Dirty F Word. Of course, she's writing about failure. And I'm pretty sure that Amy would tell us all that the difference between average and achievement is the perception and response that we have to failure. You know, when my mom passed away 8 years ago this month, after losing her battle with cancer, I spent a lot of time looking for the lesson in that experience. Now, how could something so devastating provide a valuable lesson that I could use? Well, I believe that it had a lot to do with my attitude and perception about my mom's death. I didn't choose to focus on my sadness and loneliness, but rather what her life taught me. She was a fighter. She battled lung cancer twice as a non-smoker. Through all of the treatments and all of the associated pain she went through that followed, you would be hard-pressed to find Mom without a smile on her face. As ironic as it sounds, my mom's death really taught me how to live. So remember, your attitude towards the unpleasant detours will determine your growth. Now, the third thing that you should know about experience is that when you don't evaluate and learn from it, you're going to pay the price. Have you ever heard the old saying that experience gives the test first and the lesson later? I love it. Well, it's not good to have to pay the price for experience and not get the lesson. But as you can imagine, that happens quite frequently. Why? Because when experience is negative, people tend to run from it. All we say is, I'll never do that again. But in order for us to gain wisdom and improve in our leadership, we need to not only learn something from our experiences, but also learn something positive. So if you don't want to pay the price for something you don't get, then make sure that you spend time evaluating and learning from your experiences. Okay, now the last thing that I want to share with you, that I want you to know about experiences, that those who take the time to evaluate it, well, they stand out from others. I know several people who make it a practice to reflect on their experiences. They make it a regular practice to evaluate what went right and what went wrong when they reflect on their own experiences. And I'll tell you, these individuals stand out from the others. If you were to meet them, you could easily see there's just something different about them. And that difference is that they've learned lessons from their experiences. You know, life provides us with tons of experiences. Call them failures, roadblocks, barriers. They're all experiences. And some we expect and others we don't. But all of them can teach us valuable lessons as long as we want to learn and are willing to reflect on them. If you are, you'll not only be a person of integrity and wisdom, but you'll also be an asset to those who follow you, because you will also become a much better leader. You know, experience is a great way for us to continue to add tools to our leadership toolbox. With every lesson learned, we can take what works and use that to our advantage. But it takes intentionality to go back and evaluate those experiences so we can learn the lessons from them. That's where real experience comes from. It isn't the experience itself. If I have an experience and I do nothing with it, or I learn nothing from it, what good is having the experience at all? If all we have in our toolbox is a hammer, then everything's going to look like a nail. We're going to pound away with that hammer at everything that comes our way, even when what we really needed was maybe just a screwdriver. Evaluated experience provides that choice of tools that we can apply to situations when it calls for something different. So remember, experience isn't the best teacher. Evaluated experience is. All right, everyone, that does it for me today. Thanks for joining me, and just know that I truly appreciate you, and I look forward to our next episode next week. So join me next Wednesday in the Lion's Den for another lesson learned in leadership. This one is where I'll share the secret to a good meeting. Yes, meetings. Nobody wants to go to another meeting, but I'm going to show you how to make yours a good one. If you want to keep running to the roar, then come back to the Lion's Den next Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time and join me for the weekly roar. Thanks, everybody, for showing up today. I appreciate you, and I look forward to seeing you again. So until then, remember, be powerful, but stay poised just like a lion. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for watching the Weekly Roar live event at lionenterprise.com. If you enjoyed this video, please tell others to join us each week here in the Lion's Den. Thanks again, and see you next week.